There is a quiet kind of tension that lives beneath the surface of certain lives. A subtle tightening of the chest before speaking. A rapid rewind of every sentence after leaving a room. A lingering question. Did that come out wrong? For the ones who overthink every small interaction, the world is not simply a place of conversations and exchanges. It is a landscape of micro-signals, shifting tones, imagined meanings, and invisible emotional currents. A single moment can echo for hours. A passing glance can bloom into an entire internal narrative. And yet, beneath all of it, there is something deeply human. The longing to be understood, to be accepted without missteps, and to move through connection without fear of being misread. This is the story of that hidden tension, of the delicate psychology behind overthinking, of the quiet storm inside gentle minds. There are people who move through the world with a quiet alertness, though no one around them realizes it. To others, they seem calm, composed, perhaps even thoughtful in a gentle way. But inside, something hums. Something watches every angle, remembers every detail, replays every moment that felt even slightly out of place. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, just a subtle, persistent tension, like a thread pulled too tightly beneath the skin. It begins with small moments, a wave of uncertainty after sending a text, a lingering echo of something said hours ago, a sudden tightening in the chest as a face mildly shifts, or a tone changes ever so slightly, a glance that might have meant nothing, a silence that stretches one breath too long. The mind leaps into motion before the person even realizes it. It dissects, it recalls, it imagines. It builds entire emotional landscapes from fragments no one else noticed. A simple conversation becomes a living puzzle, rewritten again and again in the privacy of their thoughts. Each version tries to find the hidden meaning beneath the surface. Did they sound distant? Was that a hint? Did I say too much? Did I not say enough? In everyday life, these patterns are invisible. They do not cause scenes. They do not draw attention. They unfold quietly, like a second life lived internally. The tension is not only emotional, it is physical. The shoulders rise without permission. The breath shortens. The jaw presses shut. The body learns to brace, even when nothing is actually happening. It prepares for misinterpretation. It prepares for judgment. It prepares for some small shift in someone's eyes that might signal rejection, disappointment, or misunderstanding. For the overthinking mind, the world feels less like a place of straightforward interactions and more like a field of subtle possibilities. Every word becomes a clue. Every gesture becomes a message. Every pause becomes a space where something unspoken might be hiding. And so, the mind tries to fill the space before uncertainty can swallow it. People who do not carry this pattern cannot fully see it. They see only the external version, the measured responses, the thoughtful nature, the careful way this person listens. They mistake the overthinker's internal scanning for emotional intelligence or heightened awareness. And while there is truth in that, the unseen cost is heavier than anyone knows. Because beneath the surface, overthinking is not a desire for control. It is a desire for safety, a longing to avoid harm, avoid hurting someone else, avoid being misunderstood in ways that leave emotional dents that linger long after the moment has passed. It is rarely about the interaction itself. It is about the fear of what might unfold afterward, a fear of unintended consequences, a fear of carrying the weight of regret. In this quiet, emotional world, even kindness can become something to overthink. A compliment can be re-examined. A moment of connection can be replayed until the person wonders if they revealed too much or appeared too open. The mind does not rest even in warmth, because warmth is vulnerable, and vulnerability to someone wired for hyper-awareness feels like stepping barefoot into a space full of unmarked edges. Still, there is a softness beneath all of this, a tenderness that outsiders rarely understand. The overthinker carries this tension not because they distrust others, but because they care deeply about the invisible threads that connect people. They fear tugging too hard on those threads. They fear snapping them through carelessness or misinterpretation. There is a beauty here, subtle, quiet, and easily missed. But this beauty does not erase the difficulty of living inside a mind that runs relentlessly ahead of itself. This is where the story begins, with the constant hum beneath daily life, with the friction between what is felt and what is shown, with a mind that never truly rests, even in moments that appear calm to everyone else. Patterns rarely appear without a story behind them. The tendency to overthink small interactions often grows from places long forgotten, woven subtly through experiences that once felt ordinary. Most people cannot trace the beginning. They only know the present version of themselves, the one who replays conversations and searches for hidden meanings. But somewhere in the early landscape of their life, the pattern was quietly taking shape. It often begins in environments where emotional signals were inconsistent. A caregiver whose tone shifted unpredictably. A parent who praised one day and criticized the next. A household where silence was heavy, where moods were unspoken but deeply felt. Children in such spaces learn to read the air before they learn to trust it. They scan faces, gestures, and pauses for clues. They learn that safety depends on noticing the small things. For some, the earliest memories involve waiting for someone's reaction, watching a parent's shoulders tense, observing the way a door closes, listening for a change in breathing. These tiny details become the map they use to move through connection. Over time, this heightened awareness becomes second nature. Not as a gift, but as a requirement for emotional survival. Others grow up in quieter forms of uncertainty. Perhaps they learned that mistakes carried a heavy cost, a raised eyebrow, a disappointed sigh, a cold distance. Children absorb these responses with gravity. They come to believe that the smallest misstep can shift the emotional ground beneath them. So they rehearse their words. They monitor their tone. They soften themselves to fit whatever will keep the peace. There are also those who were praised for being mature, good, easy, or responsible. These labels sound kind, but they teach a subtle rule. Keep things smooth, avoid conflict, keep others comfortable. And so, without realizing it, the child grows into someone who scans for discomfort and adjusts themselves in advance. Overthinking becomes a way of preventing disappointment, both theirs and others. Sometimes the roots lie in sensitivity itself, the innate kind, the temperament that feels deeply, notices everything, and holds emotions with unusual care. Sensitive children often internalize the emotional tone of a room more intensely than others. They do not simply hear words, they absorb them. They sense tension long before it is named. In a supportive environment, this sensitivity becomes empathy. In an unstable one, it becomes hypervigilance. The world of early relationships teaches the young mind one fundamental lesson. How safe is it to be imperfect? Those who grew up uncertain of the answer carry that question into adulthood. And so, every interaction becomes a test, quiet, internal, unspoken. Did something shift? Did someone's expression change? Did their voice sound slightly different? The mind measures, calculates, prepares. The origins are not always dramatic. Sometimes they are subtle. A teacher who made a careless remark. A friend who withdrew without explanation. A moment of embarrassment that left a deeper print than expected. A pattern can grow from something small, repeated over time, until it becomes a reflex. By adulthood, the person rarely remembers where it started. They only know the feeling, the need to read between lines that may not even exist, the tension of anticipating outcomes that never happen, the fear of being misunderstood, because once, long ago, misunderstanding felt dangerous. This chapter is not about blame. It is about understanding, about seeing how the overthinking mind was shaped as a response to environments where clarity was uncertain, where love required attentiveness, where emotional safety meant staying alert. The adult who overanalyzes small interactions is not irrational. They are carrying the brilliance of a strategy that once protected them, a pattern born not from weakness, but from adaptation. A pattern that began long before they had words for it. To understand overthinking, one must look beneath emotion and into biology. The mind that dissects every interaction is not simply worried. It is wired into a loop shaped by the brain's ancient protective systems. Hypervigilance is not a choice. It is a nervous system on high alert, interpreting the smallest signals as possible threats to connection, belonging, or safety. At the center of this pattern is the amygdala, the brain's early warning system. It watches constantly for danger, physical, emotional, social. For someone who grew up in environments where social cues mattered deeply, the amygdala becomes finely tuned, alert to microexpressions, shifts in tone, and unspoken tension. It fires quickly, often before the rational mind can intervene. A raised eyebrow might activate the same circuits once used to detect genuine threat. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning, tries to regain control. It analyzes, replays, theorizes. This is where rumination takes shape. The brain attempts to make sense of sensations coming from the emotional centers. Something felt off. Why? It becomes a loop. Emotion sparks thought. Thought amplifies emotion, and the cycle repeats. Overthinkers often have strong social prediction systems, the parts of the brain that anticipate how others might react. This system is useful, even beneficial. It helps with empathy, intuition, and relational attunement. But when constantly activated, it turns into a perpetual forecasting machine. It runs simulations. What if they misunderstood? What if they were irritated? What if I sounded abrupt? The mind becomes a theater of imagined responses. Memory bias also plays a role. The hippocampus, which stores emotional memories, links present cues to past experiences. A tone that resembles an old source of conflict can trigger a disproportionate response. The brain does not distinguish between past and present. It only recognizes patterns that once required caution. This hyper-awareness extends into the nervous system. Many overthinkers live with low-level sympathetic activation, the fight-or-flight state. Not enough to cause panic, but enough to create tension. A quickened heartbeat, shallow breathing, tight muscles. The body remembers old alarms even when new situations pose no real danger. The default mode network, DMN, the brain's region active during self-reflection, also plays a part. In overthinkers, the DMN can become overactive, generating self-focused narratives that often lean towards self-blame or worst-case interpretation. This is why someone can replay a small moment for hours. It is not stubbornness, but a neural circuit stuck in a feedback loop. But this hypervigilance has a purpose. It is rooted in survival. The brain learned that paying attention prevents harm, that noticing too late hurts more than noticing too much, that social missteps once carried emotional consequences that felt heavy, sharp, or unpredictable. The result is a system that tries tirelessly to protect the person from discomfort, conflict, disappointment, or rejection. It treats social interactions like delicate terrain, requiring careful navigation. And though this vigilance feels exhausting, it comes from a place of deep care, a desire to preserve connection, maintain harmony, and avoid causing or receiving emotional woundings. The hypervigilant brain is not broken. It is overworked. It is loyal. It is trying constantly to keep its person safe. This understanding does not erase the tension, but it offers clarity. The overthinking mind is not a flaw in logic or willpower. It is a nervous system trained to pay exquisite attention long after the environment that required such attention has passed. Inside the overthinking mind, there is a subtle yet constant conflict, a tug-of-war between wanting to be authentic and fearing the consequences of being seen exactly as one is. It is a quiet tension, internal, invisible, but endlessly draining. One part of the person longs for ease, for flowing conversations, for moments unburdened by second-guessing. This part wants connection without the internal audit trailing behind every sentence. It wants the freedom to speak without rehearsing, to exist without analyzing, to trust without scanning. But another part feels the weight of caution. This part remembers every moment when openness led to misunderstanding. It recalls the sting of misinterpretation, the discomfort of being perceived inaccurately, the heaviness of regret that arrived long after an interaction had ended. It insists on revisiting conversations, checking for mistakes, predicting outcomes. It feels responsible for preventing emotional harm, both to self and others. These two parts rarely coexist peacefully. The desire to relax collides with the instinct to protect. The wish to be natural clashes with the need to monitor. This inner conflict often appears in subtle ways. Speaking becomes more measured. Jokes are softened. Opinions are filtered. Small pauses turn into self-questioning. After an interaction, the mind replays scenes, trying to detect any sign of friction. It searches for slight tensions in tone, small shifts in facial expression, anything that could signal disconnection. The inner critic emerges too, not harsh, but persistent. A quiet voice that whispers, maybe that sounded rude. Maybe they thought you were uninterested. Maybe you should have phrased that better. It is not cruelty. It is fear disguised as caution. This conflict creates a paradox. Overthinkers often care deeply about others, yet assume others are silently judging them. They are gentle with people, yet strict with themselves. They show grace outwardly, but rarely inwardly. And though they crave reassurance, they often doubt it when it arrives. A simple, "It's fine," doesn't land softly. It becomes another moment to analyze. Did they say that to end the conversation? Did they actually mean it? The mind cannot easily accept ease because ease feels unfamiliar. Yet beneath the tension, there is longing, a longing to trust that interactions do not require perfection, that people are more resilient than the mind predicts, that connection doesn't rest on flawless behavior. The tug-of-war is not a sign of confusion. It is a sign of deep awareness, an attempt to balance authenticity with caution, to protect the self without hiding it completely. Overthinkers often exist in this middle ground, not fully open, not fully guarded. They move carefully, trying not to step on emotional landmines that may not even exist. They hold themselves back when they want to lean in. They search for certainty in a world that rarely offers it. The internal struggle is not about drama, it is about responsibility. They fear causing harm, they fear misunderstanding, they fear being misunderstood. And so, the mind continues the quiet tug-of-war, striving to find a way to be human without feeling like every interaction comes with invisible consequences. There comes a moment, sometimes subtle, sometimes sharp, when the pattern of overthinking begins to shift. Not because the fear disappears, not because the mind suddenly changes, but because something tilts. Something light enters the cracks. It usually arrives quietly, maybe in the form of someone patient enough to clarify the things most people dismiss, or someone whose reactions are consistent, gentle, predictable, the very thing the overthinker never learned to trust. Sometimes it comes through exhaustion, when the mind can no longer sustain the loops it once relied on. Sometimes it comes through reflection, noticing that the imagined catastrophes rarely match the outcomes. The turning point is not a revelation, it is an interruption, a small pause in the cycle where the person sees themselves from the outside, noticing how much they carry, how tightly wound their internal system is. They recognize the weight, not with judgment, but with clarity. This moment often begins with one realization. Not every interaction is a test. Not every silence is loaded. Not every tone shift is a signal. Not every pause means something is wrong. The overthinking mind feels this truth before it fully believes it. There is hesitation, doubt, resistance. The old protective systems do not dissolve. They question the unfamiliar feeling of safety. But something is different now. The person begins to consider the possibility that the world may not be watching as closely as their nervous system once believed. Sometimes the shift comes when they see someone interpret their own behavior in a simple, non-threatening way. Something harmless, something human. And suddenly they realize, perhaps others are not rewriting every moment. Perhaps they are not analyzing every word. Perhaps people are more forgiving and less attentive to the small details the overthinker magnifies. The turning point may happen during a moment of vulnerability. A time when the person says something imperfect and nothing collapses afterward. The world remains intact. The relationship stays warm. The imagined consequences never arrive. And for a brief moment, the mind experiences a new kind of safety, one it never fully trusted before. This shift is fragile at first. It flickers. It doesn't solidify instantly, but it plants a seed. A quiet understanding that the internal predictions may not always reflect reality. A tiny space opens where possibility lives. In this space, the person begins to notice the difference between imagined reactions and real ones. They see that most interactions do not unravel simply because of a small slip, an offhand comment, a moment of awkwardness. They begin to sense that missteps are normal, even common, even expected. The turning point does not fix the overthinking mind. It softens it. It offers glimpses of an alternate experience, one where connection does not require perfect calibration, where relationships have room for mistakes, where people are not as fragile or as judgmental as the internal narrative once suggested. Something tilts, something loosens, something opens, and for the first time, the person imagines a world where their mind can rest, even if only for a moment. As the mind begins to sense safety, something gradual unfolds. Not a dramatic transformation, but a quiet easing, a softening. The overthinking patterns do not vanish. They simply lose their urgency. The internal alarms sound less frequently. The body settles more easily. There is room for breath where tension once lived. This softening often begins with awareness. The person notices their own loops in real time. They recognize the rise of doubt, the pull of overanalysis, the familiar urge to replay conversations. But instead of being swept into the cycle, they observe it with gentleness, not to stop it, not to fix it, but simply to acknowledge it. Naming the pattern brings clarity. Clarity brings compassion. Compassion loosens the grip. The nervous system responds to this compassion. Muscles release slightly. The heart rate steadies. The breath deepens. The brain learns slowly that moments of uncertainty do not require full activation. The person begins to differentiate between genuine danger and imagined threat. In this stage, the mind becomes curious rather than defensive. What am I afraid will happen? Why does this moment feel heavier than it is? What old memory is being stirred here? These questions are not meant to solve anything. They simply create space. Space between sensation and interpretation, between fear and reaction. Gradually, the person begins to experience interactions with more presence. Instead of replaying them afterward, they inhabit them as they unfold. They listen without scanning for hidden meanings. They speak without rehearsing. There is still awareness, still sensitivity, but it is not burdened by anxiety. It becomes gentler, more grounded. Softening also comes through connection. The presence of people who respond consistently, kindly, and without hidden judgment offers the nervous system something it never fully trusted before: stability. Through repeated safe interactions, the brain rewires its predictions. It learns that not every misstep leads to rupture, that imperfection is not dangerous, that relationships can absorb small tensions without breaking. In moments of self-reflection, the person begins to see the beauty in their sensitivity, the way it allows them to notice emotional nuance, to care deeply, to connect meaningfully. The goal is not to silence this sensitivity, but to let it breathe without fear. Overthinking becomes less of a survival strategy and more of an echo, a habit rather than a necessity, a whisper rather than an alarm. There are days when the old patterns return, strong and overwhelming. But even then, something is different. The person no longer believes the thoughts so easily. They understand that the intensity doesn't always reflect truth. The cycle may continue, but its hold weakens. Softening doesn't mean becoming carefree or thoughtless. It means living with awareness without being consumed by it, feeling deeply without being flooded, caring without carrying the weight of every possibility. It is a slow, tender process, one that unfolds quietly, like dawn breaking across an overworked mind. In the final chapter of this journey, the overthinking mind finds a form of quiet, not silence, not emptiness, but a gentler way of being, a way where thoughts still come, but they move softly. They pass through rather than anchoring deeply. They lose their sharp edges. This quiet is not earned through force or discipline. It emerges naturally, like the calm that follows a long, unsettled sky. The person begins to understand themselves in new ways, not as someone flawed or overly anxious, but as someone who adapted beautifully to the environments that shaped them. The sensitivity that once felt burdensome is now seen with tenderness. It becomes clear that noticing too much was never a defect. It was an attempt to navigate uncertainty with care. The mind that once dissected every moment did so to protect the heart from wounds that felt too heavy to endure. In this quieter place, the person sees that most interactions are simple. They rise, unfold, and fade, without needing to be analyzed, rewritten, or held beyond their natural lifespan. Not because they no longer care, but because they trust that connection does not depend on perfect performance. The world feels softer when the internal tension loosens. The person moves through conversations with more ease. They listen without fearing hidden meanings. They speak without rehearsing. They let moments be imperfect, human, unpolished. The silence after the storm is not the absence of thought. It is the absence of fear around thought. The absence of urgency. The absence of the old belief that every word carries consequences. In this closing space, the mind recognizes its own humanity. It recognizes the beauty in caring deeply, the strength in feeling intensely, the gentleness in wanting connection, so much that it once tried to micromanage every detail of it. There is peace in understanding oneself, not fixing, not forcing, just understanding. The storm dies not because it is fought, but because it is seen. Seen clearly, seen compassionately, seen without judgment. And in that clear seeing, the mind finally rests. Not because the world has changed, but because the person has learned to meet it with softness,